Good evening. I'm Mike Marza, recapping what has been another whirlwind day in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. A number of different witnesses took the stand today, including Cassie Ventura's mother, Combs' former personal assistant, as well as a male exotic dancer known as the Punisher. They testified about everything from a sex performance in Trump Tower to a potentially explosive run-in with rival rap executive Suge Knight. In just a moment, we'll be joined by ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villalona to talk about everything that happened in court today. But first up, Darla Miles with a recap from Lower Manhattan.
David James, a former personal assistant for Sean Combs, wrapping up his testimony Tuesday morning. During his 2-year employment, James testifying he would advance hotel rooms, buying baby oil, lubricant, and condoms, and packing Combs' Louis Vuitton toiletry bag with drugs, including Viagra, ecstasy, Percocet, and one to increase sperm count. During a 2008 trip to Miami, James telling the court that he used a hotel key to go inside Combs' room when no one answered the door. Prosecutors asking, "What did you see when you entered the hotel room?" James responding, "I saw Cassie on the bed. She had a comforter up to her neck. She was laying with her head to the side." And saying, "There was a gentleman. He was completely naked. He scurried away." Prosecutors asking, "How did Cassie react when you walked in?" James said, "She didn't move at all." Federal prosecutors have been working to paint Combs as dangerously violent, asking James about a November 2008 incident involving music industry rival Suge Knight, driving Combs to an LA diner where Knight had been spotted. "What did you see?" James responding, "Mr. Combs had 3 handguns on his lap." "What did Mr. Combs say to you?" "He said, expletive go." Combs' attorney challenging James, asking, "What are you going to do? You're now in a black Escalade with 2 men and 3 guns to confront someone." James responding, "Respectfully, you have someone in close proximity with a gun. I didn't think I had an option to say anything." Defense responding, "Did they give you any type of immunity?" James answering, "You'll have to talk to my lawyer about that." The mother of Cassie Ventura also testifying today that she took this picture of Cassie's injuries in December 2011, and that after receiving this email that Combs was threatening to release freak-off videos, Regina Ventura saying she had to take out a home equity loan when Combs demanded money to recoup money spent on Cassie. Prosecutors asking, "Why did you go to the bank and withdraw $20,000? Ventura responding, "I was scared for my daughter's safety." "Why did you need to pay Sean Combs $20,000? "Because he demanded it." Now, in a few days, that money was returned to Regina Ventura. Her testimony only lasting about 15 to 20 minutes today. The attorneys for Sean Combs chose not to cross-examine her at all. Tomorrow, we may hear from the rapper, singer Kid Cudi, who was briefly in a relationship with Cassie Ventura. Darla Miles, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
We are joined now by ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villalona. Thanks so much for being here. A lot to dig into, and Darla just kind of teed us up there for this. Let's begin with a personal assistant, because he was the longest on the stand today.
Yes.
What was he able to paint as far as a picture for the jury from the prosecutor's point of view?
So, Mr. James, the personal assistant, former personal assistant, is the person inside of Diddy's camp that was able to give us an insight as to the camp of Diddy. So pretty much going into that criminal enterprise portion of the racketeering charge. So he gave us insight as to what his security guards used to do, how he used to also participate in the sense of setting up these rooms, these hotel rooms for these freak-offs, in terms of getting narcotics for Diddy, in terms of going with security, and in terms of that specific day where they saw Suge Knight and he was driving the car to go over there and essentially to shoot up Suge.
Yeah, take us to that moment, because that was a pivotal part of this testimony.
Absolutely.
And so, and very dramatic. And if you know anything about the hip-hop world, Suge Knight, notorious for being a violent person himself. In fact, he's in prison for a violent act, running people over, I believe, as far as a crime that, and he's been accused of other things as well. But the bottom line in this particular testimony is that he's at sort of the center of this violent outburst, allegedly, from Sean Combs. What did the personal assistant, the former personal assistant, what was he able to testify to about what went down at this diner?
So in terms of the personal assistant, Mr. James, he was able to say that he was out with the security guard and they spotted Suge Knight, and then they left the diner and went back to the home and saw that Sean Combs as well as Cassie was outside. Cassie was upset with Sean Combs. Pretty much from prior testimony we heard that she was begging him not to go. Either way, Sean Combs gets inside of this car. When he gets inside of the car, Mr. James looks back and sees that Sean Combs has 3 guns on his lap. 3 guns on his lap.
Handguns.
Handguns.
Yeah.
On his lap, and he's telling him to try to go to this diner to try to catch Suge Knight. So why is this important? We see the violent nature of Sean Combs. This jury got to get some insight that aside from allegedly beating Cassie and other people, that he is not afraid to get his hands dirty and be in possession of a firearm and actually attempt to actually use it. Because they didn't find Suge Knight at the diner. But the question is, of course, is what was in his mind when they went to the diner? What were they planning to actually do? But to be fair, in terms of the defense was cross-examining him about this, and the defense was trying to question his credibility as to whether this even happened or it happened the way that he actually said. But first time the jury hears about this because this long-term beef, we've known it for years.
East Coast, West Coast.
Dating back to when Biggie was killed.
Right. And former executive of Death Row Records, Suge Knight, and then you had, of course, the head of Bad Boy in Sean Combs representing the East Coast and that infamous murder of Notorious B.I.G. Christopher Wallace. Take me through the testimony from the defense's point of view with the personal assistant, the former personal assistant, because this is an important part to try to dismantle that accusation that this was some criminal enterprise, that Sean Combs was doing this on purpose and doing these things to carry out the crimes that he's alleged to have carried out.
So the prosecutor, again, the prosecutor's focus on putting Mr. James on the stand is to try to put together this picture of this criminal enterprise. In terms of what the defense was doing, the defense was questioning his credibility as to everything he was pretty much saying on the stand, that this was on you. You were the one who actually decided to go in the car and to go back, but questioning whether he went there to meet up with another person, not that all 3 of them were inside of the car at the same time. But also the defense was dismantling the part about what he actually observed in terms of advancing these freak-off rooms, whether he was setting it up and how he was setting it up and whether he saw any type of foul play.
And there was a point, too, in the testimony when the former personal assistant was asked about a night where he was off, but he was sort of partying
Oh, my
around.
God. Let me tell you, Mike. Yeah. Now, that was a moment. So, in fact, the jurors were actually laughing at this moment. So, Mr. James says that he was off on that day and he was out with one of the security guards, and that while he was out with one of the security guards, the 2 of them decided that they want to bring 2 women back to Diddy's house. They didn't think that Diddy was up or he was at the mansion. Right. So while he's inside of the room with his particular female that he hooked up with, that after he had sex with her, that she said, okay, that'll be $200. And that he called, the security guard was like, she's charging me $200. $200 for what? He did not believe that she was a prostitute. And the security guard was like, you better pay him. You better pay her because we don't want any problems, right? So then that this woman, this escort, said, all right, I need to take a shower. Mr. James said, look, I didn't pay you $200 to take a shower. And that's when the jurors started laughing.
The jury's laughing at this one.
And the people in the courtroom were laughing.
Oh,
yes.
Some levity in the middle of all of this serious testimony. There was also some other questionable things that happened today as far as when you hear the headlines. And you hear this person that was nicknamed the Punisher testify.
Yes.
He's a male exotic dancer. How did he come into play in this picture that the prosecution's trying to paint?
Okay, so in terms of the Punisher came in to testify about these freak-offs. So
we should explain the nickname. We should explain the nickname.
Right, the nickname is not because of his performance inside of this exotic dancing, but rather he got his name when he was much younger from his performance on the basketball court.
Yes. On West 4th basketball.
Very deflating.
Yeah. So he's on the stand. He's nicknamed the Punisher. The prosecution is trying to do what with that witness?
So the prosecution is building a case in terms of strength in numbers, in terms of escorts that are being paid for their sexual services. So that was like the main point of having that witness testified, is that here you have another male, I guess, performer turned into prostitute being paid for his sexual services. Also, he gives us, again, insight as to these freak-offs and how Cassie was taking direction from Sean Combs doing these freak-offs. However, the defense was able to gain some nuggets out of it in the sense of that the defense was saying, well, Cassie was in control of this. Cassie wanted this. In fact, Cassie was very engaged, and she acted as if she wanted it. And the defense was able to say, be like, yes, I didn't see anything about hesitation. She wasn't under the influence of drugs. She wasn't under the influence of alcohol. She wanted this. She was into it.
And at one point, the Punisher was able to testify from the defense, prompting him, I believe, or at least asking him that Cassie allegedly told the Punisher not to even look at or engage with Sean Combs, who was in the room.
Yes, so Cassie,
showing she's in control,
yes,
allegedly.
Cassie told, allegedly again, so Cassie told the Punisher, look, when you go into the room, do not make any eye contact with Sean Combs. Don't make any eye contact with my husband. Because initially they didn't state who the male in the room was. They were trying to hide their identity. In fact, he didn't know that Cassie was Cassie until later on.
According to Cassie's testimony, though, we do know, and from the videos we have seen and the evidence we have seen, there were violent encounters with Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura. And her mom took the stand today.
Yes.
What was that moment like?
It was emotional. You know, you can tell that this is a woman that is hurt. Like, I thought at one point that she was going to start crying.
The mom?
Yes, the mom. Because the mom started to testify two specific instances. The first instance when Cassie had come home because she had been beaten by Sean Combs, and for the first time, Cassie tells her mother that she was beaten by Sean Combs and shows her the injuries, the bruises, and that's why she takes the picture. But also the email talking about he's willing to release 2 sex tapes, explicit sex tapes. And then you have the demand for $20,000 if you don't give me this money. So that threat right there, that blackmail right there, that extortion right there, that she was so forced and so nervous that she took out a home equity loan, her and her husband, to get these $20,000, arranged it with the bookkeeper, wired it so that Sean Combs can have it, but that miraculously, within a few days, that money was returned to her. So that was like one of the first emotional moments. And the second one having to deal that she went to visit Cassie for her 30th birthday in California, and that Sean Combs had taken Cassie's phone and she wanted the phone back. Mom did. She called the cops, got the cops involved. Eventually she got the phone, but Sean Combs took Cassie's car and drove off.
Part of that earlier testimony with the email, that's documentation of Cassie's mental state at that moment.
Yes.
How key is that?
Oh, it's crucial. It's crucial because you can't say that what she's saying now is recent fabrication, because we're looking at it in real time as the relationship is continuing, what was going on at that time, because that email was dated from, I believe, 2011, I think. So we're talking about, even though we're testifying to it in 2025, the jury seeing what she was undergoing in 2011 when there was no motive to try to get a payday or to try to get back at Sean Combs for what she went through.
And the mom also testified that there was physical violence threatened not only towards Cassie, but also her romantic partner at one point, Kid Cudi, a rapper as well, who we expect to hear from tomorrow.
Yes.
How important is his testimony?
So Kid Cudi's testimony is important in terms of the racketeering conspiracy, because one of the predicate acts is that of arson. And the allegation is that Sean Combs had Kid Cudi's car blown up. So the prosecution wants to try to get that evidence in and try to get an admission from Sean Combs that he was the one responsible for blowing up that car, so they can gain their evidence for the racketeering conspiracy, because they have to prove 2 of those predicate acts in order to be able to secure a guilty verdict.
We expect him to be on the stand tomorrow.
Yes, either tomorrow, the latest. The prosecutor said by Thursday morning that he should be on the stand.
So much more to come. Bernarda, thank you.
Yes.
As we mentioned, testimony continues tomorrow in this case. Of course, we'll be there again. Stay with Eyewitness News and ABC-7NY all day. Plus, we have a real-time blog of these developments as they're happening in court. You can read the blog, again, real-time, no matter where you are, at ABC-7NY.